as we mentioned off the top, 18 NFL teams opening mandatory minicamps today. You see them all right there. One of them, the Jets, hoping for better results than last year when Aaron Rodgers suffered a season-ending injury 4 plays into the season opener. However, noticeably absent from mandatory minicamp today was Rodgers. Here's what head coach Robert Saleh had to say about it. It's new on SportsCenter.
Aaron and I spoke before OTA started. He's been very good in communication. He's been here the entire time. It's inexcused, but he had an event that was very important to him, which he communicated. It's a great opportunity, too, for Tyrod to get reps with the ones over the next couple of days. But as far as Aaron, I mean, he's been in the league for a while. He's played at a very high level. I think it'll be more beneficial for Tyrod than a loss for Aaron.
Inexcused, but an event that is very important to him. NFL analyst Tim Hasselbeck is joining us right now. And Tim, to you, how big of a deal is it that Aaron Rodgers is not at mandatory minicamp right now?
Well, for Aaron's, play this season, I don't think it's a big deal. It's a little bit like Robert Saleh said. Look, he's been in the league a long time, he's played at a high level. And so from that regard, in terms of his preparation, I don't think it's a big deal. Now, it's always better to have guys around than have them away, especially leaders of your football team. So I think it's really probably, the biggest detriment in terms of the expectations for the football team is when one of your leaders isn't there, especially if you have other guys that aren't there or deciding to not be there. So, look, Aaron's actually done a very good job, probably better than most would have expected in terms of being around for a lot of the voluntary stuff that the Jets have had going on this offseason. So I'm sure it's been well communicated. I'm sure people feel like he's bought in. I don't think it's a performance issue come season time. At the same time, it's good to have your leaders around.
You talk about good to have your leaders around. I thought it was interesting what Robert Saleh said in that clip. He said it was unexcused, but also an important event for Aaron Rodgers. What might that say about the dynamic between the two? Because obviously it seems like Robert Saleh does not agree with the fact that he's not at minicamp right now.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the things you have to do as a head coach. You basically say, look, I'm going to, even for our stars, say this is an unexcused absence, especially if Aaron is somewhere where it's going to be documented where he is. Look, if he's attending to a family matter and people don't know where he is, that's one thing. But if he shows up, at a publicized event, something like that, that certainly would raise some eyebrows from the rest of the football team about, wait a second, why would that be excused? So, listen, it's one of the challenges of being a head coach, and I think Robert Saleh probably handled it about as well as he could have.
Is it an excused absence or an inexcused absence? You got to go to the grammar here. What can you tell us?
Well, I can tell you that Robert Saleh is making clear in that news conference that this was an unexcused absence for Aaron Rodgers. I can also tell you, though, that the Jets are not necessarily concerned about his absence because he did communicate it to the team. He also has been present throughout OTAs and, quite frankly, more so present, as the team will tell you, than he really was at any of Green Bay's off seasons in his later years there. The one thing I'll say here, if there is any looming drama to come out of this, and perhaps it will be squashed once some people communicate, the question is whether Aaron Rodgers knew that this was excused or unexcused when he did communicate it to Robert Saleh. So like anything with the Jets, we do have a little bit of looming drama. But I will say the Jets are trying to make very clear that they are okay, even if it's unexcused, with Aaron Rodgers not being at minicamp today.
At the end of the day, it would result in a fine. And again, he's been around the league long enough, as you heard Saleh say. I don't know that a minicamp would help him as much as some people might think it would. On the other hand, it could help with Deshaun Watson and the Browns. They are also getting some work in. We know Deshaun missed a ton of time last year with the shoulder. What can you tell us about where he is right now recovering from surgery?
Well, I can tell you, again, I'm going to put out a caveat here that this is not to say that there's been any kind of setback with Deshaun Watson, but in minicamp, we should not expect to see Watson throwing full speed during team drills. Throughout this offseason, Jameis Winston has handled most of the first team reps. Watson has been going through simulations, as you're seeing here, but when it comes to team drills, he is not throwing full speed, and I don't anticipate, based on my conversations, that he will do so until training camp. They are trying to be as cautious as possible with him. He is believing in himself that he is without limitations, that he could do these things. But for now, we should not expect to see Deshaun Watson at full speed in this minicamp.
It's the Joe Burrow discussion we just had a couple of minutes ago. You get him out there to get some reps in, but he's not going to go slinging it all over the yard like it's week 5 of the NFL season.
You always forget how hard it is coming back from injury. That's every time it happens, I think the same thing, because there's always peaks where you're like, I'm feeling great, and then a couple months later, you have a couple days where it's like, man, I'm not feeling that great. And in the past, I'd pushed through that and caused problems for myself. And this year, I'm not doing that. It's a constant process. That's what coming back from injury is. There's going to be good days and bad days, and we're going to take it day by day. I'll be ready to go by the season.
Bengals reporter Ben Baby joins us right now. And Joe Burrow missed the final 7 games of last season with that wrist injury. You heard Joe Burrow talking about it right there. Ben, what did you see from Joe Burrow at practice today?
Yeah, Mina, like you just heard, Joe said he'll be ready for the season, but when I asked him what percentage he'd put that wrist that's coming back from surgery, he said that it was hard to put a number on it, and we saw him today in drills, and one thing that was notable was that he did participate in 7-on-7 drills today, but the Bengals did not have any 11-on-11 team reps, and we did see Joe flexing that wrist at times, especially after individual drills early in practice. And one of the themes for him this whole offseason has been finding that balance on when to push through an injury and when to listen to his body. And I asked him about that, and he said that the calf injury he suffered last year was a big catalyst for that. And this offseason, he's picked up some hobbies, including playing the piano, he told us. And when I asked him about that, he said that that's something that he picked up in order to help with that wrist recovery and that it's helped with his dexterity. So that's something he'll be doing as he gets ready for training camp in July.
Yeah, and Joe Burrow also kind of hinting at the fact that it's not only a physical journey back, but also an emotional and mental journey back as well from an injury. Ben Baby, we'll have more from you in just a bit, so stay with us.
Yeah, I mean, the Bengals are hoping that Burrow composes some sweet music on the field for him this year as Tim Hasselbeck is with us. And Tim, you kind of heard him allude to it there a second ago, talking about taking his time with the injury. So how much concern, based on what you heard Burrow say, based on what you heard Ben Baby say, how concerned are you about the quarterback and his health?
I do think you have to be a little bit concerned, and it's not just, Ben's reporting and what Joe Burrow said. It's also the fact that this is an injury that's not a typical injury for quarterbacks. A lot of times if somebody is coming off of an injury and other players at his position has had an injury in the past, and there's been a traditional path to recovery and rehab, and while it won't always look exactly the same, there's a program and a protocol to follow.
Sure.
I think it's a little unique, in this situation. It's not a common injury. It's been clear, and Burrow has talked about, just getting the range of motion and the flexibility back in his wrist. Obviously important for a thrower. And it seems like, taking your time with that rather than just aggressively pushing through it probably is the best path to be healthy when the season rolls around.
Yeah, he gets nothing out of having zip on his ball at minicamp road. Nothing, right? I mean, it's get there, go through the motions, make sure,
If he were to miss everything right now, Matt, to be ready to play during the season, there'd be no problem. If he was full go right now and was going to miss games during the regular season, that'd be a major issue for the Cincinnati Bengals. If he's healthy and playing, they have a chance to compete with anybody. If he's not available, much like we saw a year ago, it's a disaster for Cincinnati.
Well, to that end, he's only been one season where Joe Burrow has played in every game. His health is always top of mind. Tim, sit tight. We got more on the Bengals in just a second. Amina?
Joe Burrow's top target, Jamar Chase, is also at mandatory minicamp. Chase is eligible for a new contract and today made his first appearance at the Bengals offseason program. Ben Baby back here with us. Jamar Chase was at mandatory minicamp but did not speak to reporters. We also know that T. Higgins is not at mandatory minicamp right now. Ben, what's the latest on both of those receivers for the Bengals?
Let's start with Jamar. He did not participate in the second half of practice. He did do walkthroughs, and so I asked him if he wanted to speak to reporters today. He said he did not, but I did ask, are you healthy? And he said, what? I don't look healthy, and that's good information to have. As you noted, he is looking for that contract extension. He was waiting on Justin Jefferson's deal to get done, something he has been talked about last year, so we'll see how that continues to develop. As for T. Higgins, he is still not signed his franchise tag. He has not reported throughout the entirety of this offseason program. Joe Burrow talked about the communication he's had with Higgins this offseason. He's noted that it's been good. He's seen him several times, and he would be very open to throwing with T, who has indicated previously in the offseason that he does intend to play for the Bengals in 24, despite asking for a trade earlier in the offseason.
If you're a fan, you always worry when your top receiver is not at mandatory minicamp, but it sounds like something will get done in the near future. Ben Baby, thank you so much for the insight.
If you think the fans are concerned that the top star receivers aren't there, think about the quarterback Joe Burrow, who isn't healthy and he needs his stars there. So, Tim, you look at the two receivers. Both want money. Both are saying the right things off the field. Who knows if they're happy or not? How concerning is that for the quarterback that both of his receivers are looking for the exact same thing?
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think the biggest issue in this, Matt, is that this is probably the last time that Joe Burrow is going to have both guys. Now, I think ultimately, just like, in Ben's reporting there, look, the Bengals have been clear that they want to get a deal done with Chase. Chase had reason to wait around and see some other deals take place before signing his deal. Now, Higgins is a different story. They've obviously made Chase the priority because of the, current collective bargaining agreement. It does not make sense for Chase to have a holdout. Now, a hold in where, look, you've got a tight hamstring and can't play. That would certainly, cause some angst if I were the Cincinnati Bengals as an organization, as well as Burrow. It doesn't appear that that's going to be the case. And so I would just say that, patience is probably going to be, the key word here for both guys with how it plays out. But this probably is the last ride for Burrow and both of these, really true number one wide receivers, which means, being healthy and playing well is going to be critical because it's going to be probably the last time you have both guys.
Yeah, you can pay one big-time money. We know the franchise tag T. Higgins, $21.8 million. That'll be a one-year deal if and when he signs it. But that's a great point, Tim. Last chance with these three guys together, one of the best offenses in the NFL. Tim Hasselbeck. Herbert suffered a broken finger on his right hand in Week 14, which required surgery, and ended his 23 season. Numerous changes in the receiver room, with the Chargers cutting Mike Williams and trading Keenan Allen. However, L.A. drafted Georgia wide receiver Ladd McConkey with the 34th pick in the 24 draft. And then there's new head coach Jim Harbaugh, hired this offseason, second stint in the NFL after having 0 losing seasons in his 4 years with the Niners from 2011 to 2014. Harbaugh spoke today and raved on his quarterback.
The athleticism and the strength, really, I mean, he could play tight end here. He could play edge rusher here. And he can really, and the arm talent is even better than advertised. It's an exciting thing. I mean, I found myself just sitting at my desk at times and going, he's on our team,
Not once has a coach said about Tim Hasselbeck that he could play edge rusher and tight end for us, ever. Quarterback only for Timmy Hasselbeck. Tyler Fulham back with us as we break down a little bit of what Harbaugh just said. So you heard Harbaugh, he's very bullish on the quarterback and the skill there. What bet, when you look at the Chargers holistically, do you like?
I'm going to bet that the Chargers finish second in the AFC West. And the way I'm going to make this worthwhile for you is to make it a straight forecast bet. Now, if you're into horse racing, this is an exacta. I need to get the AFC West first and second in that exact order. Well, we know who's finishing first in the AFC West. We do. As long as Patrick Mahomes is healthy, the Chiefs are going to win this division. Now, when you look at who's going to come in second, you have Justin Herbert playing quarterback with Jim Harbaugh as the head coach for the LA Chargers. You have Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew with Antonio Pierce in Vegas. You have Bo Nix, Zach Wilson with Sean Payton in Denver. Big advantage at the quarterback spot for the Chargers. So I don't know if they'll be in the playoffs because there's a lot of depth in the AFC. But I think they'll be second in that division behind the Chiefs. And if it is 1-2 Kansas City, LA, that's a plus 160 wager.
We'll get to the Chargers portion of this, Hasselbeck, in a minute. But when you were looking at that graphic, that's really low for Denver, don't you think? Year 2, Payton?
Listen, I do, especially if they think that Bo Nix is going to play well. I do think the quarterback play is going to be easily improved. While Russell Wilson was there, it was such a disaster that I do think there's a shot that Bo Nix plays better. So I would agree with you on that Denver seems low considering what Sean Payton's accomplished as a coach.
Okay, so now back to the Chargers question. You heard Fulgham, he wants to bet him in at second in the AFC West. We know that the Chiefs are the class of this division. What needs to happen for the Chargers year one of Harbaugh to have them compete in this division?
I think we're going to see an identity change out of the Chargers in terms of what they've wanted to be on offense. So while he's going to gush about what Justin Herbert can do in terms of his talent, they're going to run the football. Greg Roman's his offensive coordinator for a reason. Look, and everywhere Jim Harbaugh has been, they've run the football. And so you just look at the backs that they have, physical backs, and like it doesn't matter when he was the head coach at San Diego, when he had Andrew Luck as his head coach at Stanford, Toby Gerhart ran the football, ran the ball. Then at Michigan, while it certainly fit the identity of that program, look, they wanted to run the football even if they had a good quarterback. So they're going to run the football. That's going to be the biggest change, and they're going to commit to it.
That's it. He's khakis. He's quarterback. He's run up the middle. Not much dazzle with him, but always dazzle with a Tim and Tyler production. Gentlemen, thank you.